Dear relationship cynics and relationship romantics, my name is Monice and you are listening to the Romantic Cynic podcast. On this week's episode, I wanted to talk about the relationship that we build, hopefully, between our partner's family and their friends, and hopefully that they are doing the same for you. I know that sometimes we believe that we are only in the relationship with the person, but in actuality, we're not. Their family and their friends are important to them. These are the people that raised them. These are the people that they chose to have in their lives. And it's important for us to make the effort to build those bonds and build those relationships with the people that are important to them. So I hope you take today's journey with me, where we might have some laughter, maybe some tears, romance, and of course some cynicism. Welcome to episode 8. With every one of my episodes, I always like to have some type of example of the topic at hand. And this week, I'll be discussing the relationship that we have with our partners, family, and friends, or lack thereof. When people get married, there's this belief that we just married the person. And in fact, that's not true. We marry into the family and they marry into our family. And we will be around their friends, and we hopefully are able to create relationships and create bonds with the people that are important to them and vice versa. Now, there's some circumstances where, you might be estranged from your family, or they might be estranged from their family. So this doesn't apply to every single circumstance, but each of you, I would assume or hope that you have people that are significant to you. Some friends, you may consider family. I know there's people that I know that, they're not blood related to me, but they play a significant role in my life. And I've known some of these people for years and I consider them family. And so, we might not have actual family, but we definitely have chosen people to be part of our family. So with this week's episode, I always like to have an example. And so my example will actually go back a little bit further. So it's going to go back to my first serious relationship ever. It was towards the end of high school and a few years after high school. So this was less than a 2-year relationship. This guy I was dating, he and we met in catechism classes. So we're both Catholic. And so we, as Catholics, believe in sacraments. And so we, depending upon if we're really into our faith, we can choose to complete some of these sacraments. So I met him, met his family. So I knew he was one of 3 children, and all 3 of us were in this class together. So I got to know them for a few years prior to that. So we started dating, and I had built, a relationship with his parents and with his siblings. Now I can say that his mom didn't care for me so much and his brother didn't care for me so much. I mean, you're not going to win you're not going to win everyone over. I mean, it's just a fact. There's billions of people on earth and not everyone's going to like you. So I was okay with that for the most part because I had a pretty decent bond with his sister and the father. And he had gotten to know my family as well and friends. And so we had, at least we both put in the effort that way. Now, what I have learned, being in some of these more serious relationships, it's what's important, at least for the female, from my end, that it's important to have a solid relationship with the mother. The mother seems to be the most important person that you have to have a bond with. Now, you will tend to have problems, at least again from my experience, where because the the relationship was a little strained, there was nothing I did as a person to deserve some of her wrath at times, some of just her meanness as a person. She believed that it was evident that she thought she was better than me, but it was also grinding to her because my parents gave me almost everything I wanted. I mean, I can admit I was kind of spoiled growing up, and I'm hoping that that didn't translate to me as an adult. And so I tend to be a good person, or as good of a person as I think I am, but being genuine about it. So there was a lot of turmoil there. And towards the end of that relationship, she was just this constant, like, poison in our relationship. I mean, she would accuse me of doing things that weren't true. And of course, the boyfriend at the time, would typically believe the mom, even though she had absolutely no truth, or she had no evidence to support her claims of me just being just this awful person. And so with that relationship, it ended very bitterly because of the bond that I wasn't able to create with the mother. And with that, it's, even with that, I still put in forth a lot of effort to try to, you know, meet her level. She was kind of a snob, to be quite honest. She was a snob. And she was just not the greatest person, but she tended to show the best version of herself to everyone because it was critically important for her to be seen as the ideal woman and the ideal mother and the ideal wife. But for me, I saw the bitter truth about her. So that is one example of just, again, trying to build a relationship with my boyfriend's family. Another example is, of course, I always talk about my ex-husband. He would never put forth the effort to get to know my family. So anyone who knows me, they know how incredibly important my family is to me. Family is everything to me. And so I know it was my obligation to get to know his family and his friends. And I can admit I had some really great relationships with some of my ex-husband's friends where they accepted me into their family, and they considered me family. And it did get to a point where they basically told him that, she's family, but you're our friend. So I know that didn't really go over too well with him. Whoops, sorry, I'm not sorry. But on the flip side, he never truly got to the point where he would get to know my family, where we would have time limits. Like if we wanted to go over for like the holidays, he would set a time limit as to how long we were allowed to be there. And most of the time it was like 30 minutes because he wanted to go to his family and spend time with them. So my family to him was not important. It was non-existent. And that really brought a lot of issues into our relationship. And not only that, I was somewhat impressionable to a point where, I thought that I cared enough about this person and loved this person enough where I kind of created a distance. Not my proudest years, but I did create some distance between myself and my family. And that really brought a lot of like issues to me personally, because again, family is just very important to me. Now, I didn't have a ton of friends. I usually have a very tight knit group of friends, but there were a few times he would get to know some of my friends depending upon how I talked about them. The ones that, which I think is kind of ironic, the ones that he wanted to get to know the most were the girls that were, how should I say this in a very kind way, girls that tended to have more relationships, more short-term relationships than long-term relationships. And so he always wanted to be friends with those girls, which I think, by the way, that's a huge red flag. And I was kind of not the brightest to realize that. I can talk, I can talk and make fun of myself now because I can see it from a different perspective. So those were kind of some examples that he would, get to know my family or friends, or my friends. So he never really had that really good bond with them. He never took the initiative, and he always made it awkward. Like everything was always awkward with him. One of the first interactions really was at my best friend from high school's wedding. So I was a maid of honor for my friend, one of my best friends from high school. He came with me. He was my date, and my parents were there too because my parents had known my best friend like for a long time. We all loved her, so they came with me, and so I remember having this little bit. I've watched this little bit of an interaction with my mom and my ex-husband, and she's trying to be playful. And something to know about my family is we like to tease and have a good time. I know, I think I've mentioned that in another podcast episode, where we like to tease and have a good time with people, because we're trying to get to know someone. And my mom is my family in general does that. They just want to get to know the person that I'm seeing. That's the whole point, because family always looks out for each other. At least the good families do. And so I always appreciate that my parents have always done that. And my other, my aunts and uncles and everyone like that. Like we all look out for each other. So this one day, my best friend's wedding, my mom was just trying to get to know him and tease him a little bit. And then later on that day, he's like, I don't know, like he said to me, I don't like how your mom talked to me. And, I had to explain to him, like, she's just trying to get to know you. And my mom teases, and that's who she is. I'm like, that's what my family does. And I didn't like it because it was like this, almost like a little bit of an attitude and not being willing to, again, get to know my family. And so that was like one of the first early interactions where I just remember thinking, I'm hoping this is not a continuation of a pattern that's going to take place for years. Unfortunately, it was. Again, there was no relationship that he built with my family. Now, I want to give a positive example of, people or a relationship that tries to get to know family or gets to know friends. The best one I can think of is my mom. I love this woman to pieces. I'm trying to be I want to be a little careful the way I word this. My mom is one of 4 children. She was raised by her grandmother. And she was very much, I guess you can say, a little estranged from her family, even though my brother and I, like my family, we still went to family gatherings, and we went to holidays to spend time with my grandparent, my grandmother, and my aunts and uncles. It was important for my mom that us children held in a relationship with my grandmother, and my aunts and uncles for ourselves, and she wasn't going to keep us kids away from that. She wanted us to come up with our own relationship or our own conclusions about them. So she wasn't really incredibly close to her mom and her other siblings, but my dad is one of 10 children, so huge family. And my mom really formed a beautiful relationship with my grandmother, who is now, who has passed away. My grandmother was a wonderful, wonderful woman. Excuse me. So my mom built a really good relationship with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother. And she also built really solid relationships with the siblings as well. And they, my dad's family just accepted my mom as one of their own. Like, she was one of the daughters, in that family. They welcomed her with open arms. I mean, it was to a point where my mom called my paternal grandmother mom. Like, that was mom to her. And that's a great example of the fact that, like, you're just willing to get to know and work towards being a true part of the family. And it's nice to see that dynamic. There are friends and people that I know that feel no obligation to get to know their partner's family and friends because they're so self-centered in their own world and in their own belief that they feel like they shouldn't put forth any effort into that. I mean, I've seen this time again where, one spouse just thinks that they're better than the other spouse's family, so therefore they don't put any effort into getting to know family and friends. I think all of us have to really take a step back, especially if you don't have that type of relationship, and maybe there's a reason why, and hopefully it's a very good reason why you don't have a solid relationship. But when you build that relationship, especially with a partner who is very close to their family and friends, you're telling them that the people who are important to them, they're important to you as well. We have to remember that our partners, and vice versa, they also have to put forth in the effort. They're the people that we've chosen to be in a relationship with. We've chosen them to build a life with them. And so why not build a relationship and build some type of a life with your significant other's family and with their friends. Now, with their friends, these are the people that your partner will tell all their secrets to. These are the people that, if you're having an issue in your relationship, these are the people that your significant other is turning to ask for advice and say, hey, what do you think I should do? Or, hey, I'm having some issues. I just need a vent and I can't really go to my significant other. Now, not all relationships are like that. You're going to have some relationships where the two people are just very in sync with one another and they're very truthful and honest. And hopefully you have that type of open communication relationship. I mean, that is ideal. I think everyone should strive for that. But if you don't, just remember, like, if you do have issues, they're friends more than likely, and maybe a parent or both parents. They're the person or people they're going to turn to when there's some turmoil between you. So why not why not build a partnership, or why not build a relationship with those people? Most of our friends will always defend us and be on our side, and vice versa. And I'm not saying that you should be friends with them to be manipulative. I'm saying it's important that you create a genuine, heartfelt, loving relationship with their family and with their friends. Sometimes I think that we live in a world, and it's been like this for a long time, where the individual is more important than the family unit in general, where we seek our successes individually. Like, we're almost an egocentric type of society. Now, I don't mean egocentric to like the negative, completely 100% negative. I'm just saying egocentric in the thought that we worry about ourselves more. Take the time to ask your partner, what relationship would they want from us to have with their family and with their friends? I think that's an important question to ask. I think sometimes we're a little scared to ask certain questions because either we don't think of the questions, or we might be afraid of the answer. And that's part of being in a relationship. Most of the time it's kind of scary and it's a little fearful, but we have to ask these type of questions so we're becoming a better partner for our significant other. And again, this is not just on us, this is something that we should be asking our partners as well, especially if you are very close to your family, you're very close to your friends. Asking the question, what type of relationship would they like for us to create? And you might be surprised with the answer, or you already might be doing exactly what your partner wants you to be doing. And if that's the case, that's great. That means that you have a good relationship between you and your partner. Now, if there's some things that maybe you haven't done and they tell you that they would like you to do, I would put forth the effort to actually do it. It's incredibly fulfilling when you're able to be part, like an actual part of that family, to be an actual part of that circle of friends, because you are part of that. And then again, hopefully your partner is willing to do that as well. So I hope today you enjoyed listening to this episode. I hope you got some insight as to, building a relationship between your partner's family and your partner's friends. And hopefully, if not, you don't have that, at least hopefully you have somewhat of a blueprint, somewhat of a basic question to ask. That is a starting point. So I hope today you found insight. As I said, be kind to yourself, be kind to your partner. Always work on becoming the best version of yourself. If you are not in a relationship, that is okay, because guess what? You're working on being the best person you are. And if you are in a relationship and it's a healthy relationship, hold your partner close and tell them how much you love them and how much you appreciate them. Until next time, yours truly, the Romantic Cynic.